Today we will take a look at how to vary the open drain frequency and the setup and hold time parameters on the PGY-I3C-EXPD. First, the user must establish a connection with the hardware unit using the Check Hardware Connection button. Next, we configure the master and slave devices accordingly. The user has to configure the BCR, DCR, and PID values. These values are slave dependent. Here, we change it to HDR mode as the internal slave is HDR capable and part ID should be unique. Hence, we are setting this to 1. As you can see, we have already configured one master and an I3C slave beforehand. After successful configuration, in order to further communicate with the slave device, the user has to assign a dynamic address by loading the script to the I3C slave. We will assign a dynamic address using the enter DAA command. Once the dynamic address is assigned, we are ready to communicate with the slave device. This demo will be showcased by taking the private write and read command as an example, where we vary the open drain frequency and the setup time parameters. The parameter script sys stands for the push-pull frequency. The frequency parameter is in terms of kilohertz. Therefore, the number 500 corresponds to 500 kHz. T-low and T-high are the duty cycle in percentage. If you do not specify the parameter frequency, T-low and T-high will be in terms of the low and high times in nanoseconds. TCO is the clock to data delay. By default, this parameter is 0 if it is not specified. Next, coming to the sys-OD parameter, sys-OD stands for open drain frequency. If you do not specify the sys-OD parameter, by default it is set to 1 MHz, taking the enter DAA command as an example. The global broadcast address here is in the open drain mode. Since we have not specified the open drain frequency, it will be 1 MHz by default. To specify the open drain frequency, we use the sys-OD parameter. We are setting the open drain frequency to 400 kHz, duty cycle at 50%, and TCAS is the clock after start condition. The user can specify any value in nanoseconds accordingly. Next, we come to the setup time parameters. For this we have the parameter sys extended. TSU stands for setup time. TSU start corresponds to the setup time for the repeated start condition. TSU stop is the setup time for stop condition, and TSU DAT is the setup time for data. After we have configured the sys, sys-OD, and sys-extended parameters, we are ready to send the read and write commands. For this, we click on the Run button. Here, we can see the 5 bytes of data for the write command and the corresponding 5 bytes of data which is read from the I3C slave device in the selected frame view. The open drain frequency as seen over here is 400 kHz as specified in the script parameter sys-OD, and the push-pull frequency is 500 kHz as specified in the sys parameter. We can measure the period of the clock to calculate the push-pull and open drain frequency manually by placing down the vertical cursors. Noting down the period, the delta T measured is 2 microseconds. Similarly, the user can also measure the setup and hold time parameters. So this is all for today's video. Thank you.